I call the regular meeting, the Ojai Planning Commission. This is our April 15th meeting to order. I'm out of protocol, I'm going to say this. Members of the public wishing to address the Planning Commission on items appearing on the agenda are requested to complete a speaker's card and file it with the secretary prior to the start of the meeting. The cards are available in the lobby. Speakers should state their name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Comments must be directed to the commission and not the audience. While the Planning Commission is in session, all in attendance are expected to maintain order and decorum and to obey the orders of the chair. Roll call, please.
Commissioners Mark?
Yes.
Jagiello?
Yes.
Zabilla?
Yes.
Vice Chair Nolan?
Yes.
Chair Foster absent. Commissioner Nicklin?
Yes.
Wojciechowski?
Here.
All right, Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Jagiello, will you please lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the
flag
of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Public communications is the time set aside during the Planning Commission meeting for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on items of city business other than scheduled agenda items. Matters raised at this time may be briefly discussed by the Commission and will generally be referred to staff and/or placed on a subsequent agenda. Under state law, other than for emergency items, no action can be taken at this meeting. And we have no consent items. So we're going to move on to disclosure of site visits and ex parte contacts. Start with Commissioner Merck.
I'm familiar with both sites and have not had any ex parte contacts with anyone.
I was contacted by email by Larry. I think other people were, and I responded with an email saying I would show up today between 9 and 11, which I did, but I didn't see anyone out there. And I did visit the other site as well.
I visited the Ojai Burger site, and I also was contacted by Mr. Guerrero by email. I let him know that I would be making my own inspection and would hold my questions until the public meeting.
Okay.
And I did visit the site.
I visited both sites. I was also contacted by Mr. Guerrero. And I did take up his offer to have a tour of the property, and I went in and basically, generally, it was a tour of the property and the layout of the project.
I visited both sites and talked to both applicants.
I visited the proposed winery site this afternoon. I spoke with Mr. Guerra and Josh, the architect. We did a site tour as well, and but other than that, I haven't had any contact with any other applicants.
Okay. Next is our Municipal Advisory Council Planning Commission Liaison Report. I don't see our representative in the audience. Let's see, our next meeting will be on April 20th, and that'll be Commissioner Merck, and then after that, or that'll be a report. So, Commissioner Merck, have you been to anything yet?
Not yet. No,
Okay.
It's next Monday.
Next Monday, okay, that's true, the 20th. Today's the 15th.
Yep.
And then the next MAC meeting will be on May 18th, and that'll be Commissioner Nicklin. All right, so we're going to move right on to the public hearing items. The first one is Design Review Permit DRP 14-21 and Conditional Use Permit CUP 15-01 for the outdoor dining and remodel of Ojai Burger, located at 401 East Ojai Avenue. It's Assessor's Parcel Number 023-0-110-440. The general plan land use designation of the site is general commercial, and the zoning classification is general commercial. A categorical exemption has been prepared pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act. The property owner is David Trudeau. The applicant business owner is AJ Segal, Ojai Burger LLC, and the representative is Alex Ugrick, the architect, and this is a continued item from April 1st, 2015. Can I have the staff report, please? Do I have to reopen it because it was continued from the last meeting, or?
Yeah, I would reopen it.
All right, so I just say I'm technically, I'm going to reopen the hearing for this item, and may we please have the staff report?
Yes, okay, thank you. Good evening.
We all might be familiar with this site, but I'm going to go through the site details on this. The project site is approximately 11,056 square feet, built with an existing 1,079 square foot restaurant, outdoor patio area, landscaping, and parking. The site has been previously used as a restaurant with outdoor dining, but I will note that the administrative record of this particular site address did not indicate that there was ever a CUP issued for the outdoor dining, and that's why this project was had the delay in which staff had to re-notice the project to include a CUP for outdoor dining. Access to the site is through the existing driveway off South Montgomery and through the reciprocal parking agreement off Ojai Avenue. Curb, gutter, and sidewalk improvements are already in place. And this kind of, the already built environment kind of sets down kind of a established building envelope. The project includes plans to remodel this existing building, add a new covered patio, and a storage office soda dispensing area to the existing building. The restaurant will feature a small indoor dining area, approximately 274 square feet, which accommodates 18 seats, with one accessible seating area. The bathroom will be remodeled to comply with accessible standards, and there'll be a service window installed that will provide service to the outdoor and indoor areas. So in other words, kind of a walk-up order window. Sodas will be available in the outdoor area as well, and shutters will secure this area during non-operational hours. The applicant proposes to enclose an outdoor area by raising the height of the existing wall from 16 inches to 36 inches. The wall will then be covered with stucco to match the building color. In addition to increasing the wall height, they are proposing 36-inch tall wrought iron gates, which will be painted to match the brown trim proposed along the building. A new trellis is also proposed for the east opening, kind of giving it that, a gateway into the outdoor dining area. So with that, we just kind of provide the overall stats for the site, what is covered by building footprint, parking area, et cetera, et cetera. It is important to note that we provide zoning, I did a little discussion on zoning consistency, and we think that, the outdoor dining area is very consistent with what the general purpose of the downtown area is, walking, tourist. We should note that the applicant has provided us with their application to ABC in regards to allowing beer and wine there. That application indicated they had applied for a 47 as well as a 77 type license. We don't have anything in our submittal to date to the city that indicated any kind of events. A type 77 is an event liquor license. So I provided for you as part of the supplemental information the applicant's application, so you could clearly see that we didn't provide any analysis regarding special events because there was none provided to the city. So with that, we added a condition onto the resolution that would say, any kind of outdoor activity or special event would require a temporary use permit, and that would be under separate review. So with that, I would just say that one other issue that came up was that, obviously if you've been out to the site, you can see the existing restaurant building is legal non-conforming to the setbacks in the C1 district as it's pushed back along at kind of a zero lot line. And while there was a structure at one time there that kind of followed that setback, it was demolished by the applicant. And so per section 10-2.1303, from the non-conforming section of the City of Ojai's Municipal Code, it does allow myself or you, because this entire project's been elevated to the Planning Commission, to make a finding that where a structure is non-conforming only by reason of inadequate setbacks, yard size, or open space, that structural alterations, additions, enlargements may be allowed, provided the additions, alterations comply with the zoning regulations and the standards relating to the building envelope for the parcel or site. However, and there's always an exception to everything here in Ojai, the director may issue a zoning clearance in compliance with Article 19 to build in compliance with the previous or existing setbacks. And in this case, we're asking that you take that into consideration, that the already built environment lays out the areas that really can be built on in this particular site. And so staff is recommending that you allow this continue with the existing setbacks. If you've been out there and you've seen the site plan, you know it pretty much just is the only option there for the applicant. We would note that both the storage area and the restaurant are fairly minor or small in size, and the storage / office / soda dispensing area is also something that is required as part of the health permit and, you know, the proper storage and handling of food. So that's kind of also one factor to take into consideration. So with that, I think that we also provided a parking analysis, and you can see that on site, they actually have on their particular lot 14 spaces. So based on the table provided in the city's municipal code, they're one short. But we've provided also for you their parking agreement. It's in the very back with egress and ingress easements for it. It's very obvious that there's a shared parking throughout that parking lot, and therefore we're finding them in substantial compliance with what's required for them as far as parking is concerned. They are getting a design review permit, and as usual, we're looking for you to evaluate the design theme, consistency, scope, all the other factors that we normally look at. In this particular case, the design theme will be a Spanish colonial revival with white stucco walls, clay tile roofing, brick wall caps at parapets, and exposed brown rafter tails, posts, and patio beams. Windows and doors will also be brown, and I think your plans that were submitted by the applicant clearly show the color scheme and the architectural design here with the Spanish colonial revival. So I would like you to note that the site is currently landscaped. It does make note in the application that they will be replanting with drought-resistant plants and mulch in these planter areas. I don't believe in your plans there were landscape plans submitted at this point, but with this approval, we will require that before a building permit is issued. And I think that's kind of summarizes the whole issue with this particular project. And as was noted by Vice Chair, this project was, we did conduct environmental review on it. It was determined to be exempt from CEQA under Class 3. And to date, we've received no public comments from anyone, either pro or against this project. Received no additional correspondence we need to make you aware of. And that concludes my presentation.
I have a question. All right, so we didn't get a landscape plan, and I realize, you know, after going through the design review permit application, it says the minimum submittal requirements is that you should at least have a preliminary landscape plan for, especially, you know, if a commercial or non-single family residential. So if we're not going to review it, does staff review it and make approve the plan and the irrigation plans, or how does that work?
Yes, we would make him, we would require them to have the plantings and call out the standards that are in the new, is it Title 12 or Section 12? The
Article
water.
12.
Yeah, thank you, Article 12.
Right.
And it would have to be compliant. We would make sure that it's all listed out there before, as far as, you know, the water coefficients and all of that. I know that in this particular case, we're not asking him to provide any additional square footage of landscaping, but we do want to know what he's going to be planting when they're doing drought. And everyone's opinion, you know, it's not really a subjective thing, drought anymore, even though that word is used loosely. It really comes down to that when they have to do, per the guidelines, it's going to be pretty stringent what they have to provide, the water use of each plant.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? No? Then we'd like to hear from the applicant. If you'd like to come forward and have anything to say, now's the time.
I got nothing to say.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? No, that's straightforward. Okay. Thank you.
Architect's here if you want to talk to him, and I'm here.
Okay. Do you have anything you'd like to
I
interject?
can add one comment to address your question as far as the landscaping. We are proposing to keep the existing landscape areas as is, but replant those, and we will submit a landscape plan indicating all the plant materials that are going to be used in those areas.
This is one thing that I noticed when I was at the site, and maybe you can better answer this for me. Is the parking lot area and the planters in the parking lot your responsibility, at least in front of your building, or is that, I know it's called Fitzgerald Plaza, I'm not sure who actually operates or owns that?
I will defer that to Mr. Sco.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked to David Trudeau, who's the building owner, and he considers it, I would agree that there's two businesses that share that lot. It's Agave Maria's and our lot.
Okay.
And that was planted by him, and it goes up to wherever Fitzgerald stops, which was kind of a loose agreement between the two guys at some point when Fitzgerald built it. So he thinks that he's going to plant, on the plans that you have is a list of plants that we think comply, and a number of,
didn't
somewhere
see
in
that.
there is a plant list,
Oops, sorry.
I believe.
Oh, okay.
It's not,
I didn't see it.
it's not a, laid
Okay.
out in any
Not a
way like,
drawing.
but it's a list of plants that goes in a median strip, and we're gonna have to change that median strip a little bit to have handicap access to the sidewalk for whatever ADA requirements there are that way, so that's gonna get a little smaller, but,
I didn't see it.
the plant list is there, right? Yeah, the plant list is
Oh,
there somewhere.
Somehow, I apologize because I missed it, and I,
Is it a separate list of plants, or is it on one of the sheets?
It's on,
Actually, on the site plan, there's a...
It's on the site plan.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
There's a list of plants. It's not specific as to
Okay.
where each plant is. but it is-
it's just a list of what we're gonna put, and we're gonna put a big tree in the patio.
I saw that, the olive tree.
And we're
It's
just.
on page
and we're-
A1.
Thank you.
And we're trying to figure out what olive tree and what species and all that, but it'll be consistent with the neighborhood.
Oh, wait, I got the wrong plan, sorry.
But I think that the landlord, in my opinion, the landlord, and I think he agrees, is going to be planting all those things because they're in his jurisdiction.
Okay.
Are you indicating that he's also going to be planting on Agave Maria? I mean, Maria, is that how you say it?
No, I guess what fronts Ojai Avenue is a
okay.
median, median strip sort of planter between the sidewalk and the lot. And right now, there's some very sad plants
good.
there that are going to be fixed up and replant. Some more stuff's gonna be planted. And they found a sprinkler. There was no sprinkler there. But they dug and they found it. So it's all kind of getting in order. But he'll do it.
Okay, thank you. That answered my question. That was my error for missing that. I apologize.
Any other questions for the applicant? No? Okay, Mac?
And I might need to ask some of your architectural vernacular to clarify. I have a couple questions about how the roof tiles, how they finish out.
As I understand it, there's no S tile allowed, so it's a U-shaped tile and two other sort of U-shaped tiles going into it, and sort of whatever the required Spanish tile theme is, and then there's something that prevents birds from going up in there, which
Well, it
is
would be like packed or...
some sort of a cap or
okay.
something like that. Birds and mice and whatnot is what the roofer told me.
Okay.
And we're not doing the stacked with the cement look because we think that the span of that is too small for it to look right.
So I think what why we're talking about this, you're talking something I think it's often referred to as a bird stop.
Yeah, that's what it
And
is.
it's like you can do it in clay or fabric or whatever. And we've actually have taken a pretty hard line on that type of process over the years. And what we recommend, or what's been coming through the board, is using cement, actually, which is a more authentic look, which is...
I'm open to anything that is
Yeah, it's
good. I mean,
cosmetic.
6 of 1 to me. I
completely.
really don't care. I just want to do it the root. I think that the guy from Ventura Roof who gave me my bid, the one bid, and he said he had done a bunch of work around the neighborhood, had some idea of what you guys want and would do that. If it's the bird stop, that's a problem.
Yeah,
makes
I
a
mean, it's a
difference to me.
straightforward solution. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Just need to be made aware of it.
Just no birds. in there. That's all that matters, right?
Keep the nest out, the mice. Anything else, Matt?
Yeah, a couple other things. So is this, the trellis as it is, it looks insubstantial. I mean, are those just like 2x6s stacked along there?
We're using 6x6 posts.
Uh-huh.
I believe a 6x beam, and then 2x6s to create that shade element at the top.
I mean, and then I guess this would be my question to the chair, to the committee. Is this a time to comment on that, or is this really not?
Well, why don't you just keep that thought, I think, and we could, I mean, if you have we
Okay,
answered your
yeah.
question, then we'll come back for discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then last question, on the actual, the stucco, the plastering, are you talking like straight smooth or like kind of a cat's paw finish?
No, just a straight smooth finish.
Okay, thank you.
Good. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Well, this is a public hearing, so we're opened up for public comment, and if anyone from the public would like to come forward at this time and interject. Oh,
Hard to
Councilmember
comment when you
Clapp.
can't see what it looks like.
What's that?
Hard to comment when you can't see what it looks like.
We'll give you a minute there to take a look at it. So no further questions for staff at this point. We're ready to for discussion. Let's give the public just another few seconds here.
I'd like to just say something. I think just the, it's a huge improvement than what was there for so many years. And I'm looking at this thing, and it's a nice looking building, and it's going to really fit well in Ojai, and really lift up the character of that corner, which was falling apart. So this is real good for downtown Ojai.
Okay.
I'd like to thank the owner too for going through this whole CUP process, because the previous owner kind of had this de facto outdoor dining concert party thing going on there without ever coming. It just sort of kind of grew and happened, and it never got to the point where it was like, oh, you need to come to the planning commission and get a permit for this. But I really appreciate you coming forward and doing this, because I think it's going to be a really nice venue.
Kept awake by those concerts.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a question for Kathleen. I don't see any signage on this building. Is there any being
I think you should,
submitted, or is it just that monument sign at the driveway?
as far as I know, you guys did not make a presentation for signs, correct?
No, because it's a complicated thing, and we're trying to figure out our logo and
So
our
you could come back in the
name.
future? Yeah.
So, but I think what we'll do is probably ultimately apply for a hanging sign that goes on the front facade there. It's kind of confusing because it's supposed to be oriented toward the pedestrian, but it's a wiggy corner for pedestrians. You're going down Montgomery and you're not really at the entrance to the place. Your main sort of look at it is on Ojai Avenue, so I think that on the front facade that you're looking at, sort of hanging between those two posts, will be some sort of sign.
So you'll be coming back to
to
the staff with that one before
Yeah.
you get that far. So okay, that answers that question. Are there any comments?
I just like to hold it up so the public can see it.
Yeah.
So it's told by the cameraman, if I held it up like this, and the public could see it on TV. So there. So I think it's important that they can see it too. That's it.
Okay. All right. Okay. No further public comment, so that opens it up for discussion here at the dais. What's that? Is it a verbal close required for public comment? Okay, then we close the So, discussion?
I just think it's a great improvement. It matches the surrounding buildings. There's no real change to the footprint from the old building, so, we don't have to go down that street, and it's just straightforward.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with it. I think it's a real improvement, and I'm really pleased pleased that the owner's going through the whole process and bringing it in here, and I'm glad we have a chance to move it forward.
Yeah.
Hooray.
I agree.
Nothing to say?
No,
Nothing
I
to say?
mean, it's all been said. I
Okay.
agree. It's a
All right,
beautiful
well,
building.
I'm in agreement too, and I'm willing to make a motion if we're ready.
You have any comments? I think
Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Wojcicki has some.
I mean, I would like to see the trellis just increased a little bit. I mean, those, from a logistical standpoint, those 2x6s are going to split apart in a year in the sun, and I don't know. That's the only thing, and then maybe I'm being too nitpicky. I don't know. This is, I guess, for us to think about. I mean, should there be some of those corbels going off of these things, or am I getting too involved here?
Well, I think you bring up a good point. It's about what I'm sensing, and first of all, I think it's a great project. It's obviously an improvement. But I think there could be a few basic improvements made to the overall design with some little detail. And one of them is, you addressed that trellis feels a little spindly. It's a little thin. He's got 6x6 posts, which are okay. 8x8s would be better, but definitely the 2x6 are underscaled for a trellis there. It would make a big difference, yeah. 3 or 4x6 or something like that. I don't even know if are they 6-inch? We don't even know if how tall they are, yeah. As for the sake of authenticity, maybe a little bit of a corbel detail in there well, on your overhang, your porch overhang, where your beam supports the
Some type of
not a knee brace, but a corbel. It's a detail that
Decorative thing only, it's not really for
essentially that's what it is. Yes, yeah. At one point in time, it did have structural value, but not these days. But it does add authenticity to it. And so if you wanted a little direction on what that might look like, it's fairly simple. There's a lot of examples around through the city.
Yeah, there's one right off the bike trail. There, right directly behind Libby Bowl. There's a house there. There's a vacant lot. There's the bike trail, and then there's this house, and it's got. I think it's almost exactly looking at this, but it just has that little corbel detail, and it kind of brings that out. Anyhow.
So I was wondering, is there room for in front of the the little wall, the 3-foot wall?
Mm-hmm.
Is there room to put some soften that hardscape? You have asphalt to wall to put put something in there just to soften all the hardscape there.
That is basically the drive, the way the drive.
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to come forward. And actually, we never cut your name, so if you could.
My name is Alex Ugrick. I designed the project.
Okay, Al.
That is actually in line with the driveway, the curb cut coming off of Montgomery. So with any kind of softening, if we do any type of, say, a planter or gravel, it's going to interfere. People are going to be driving into it, in other words.
See, they have 25-foot. I guess this is the 25-foot. It's right to the base of the wall. I know previously they had potted plants in front of it, right? Was that recessed back further than this plan?
No, the wall is exactly in the same place. And they did have some potted plants. I'm not sure exactly how they were arranged. The first time I saw the property was when they were in the process of moving out. So they were kind of bunched all in one area.
A possibility to soften it would be to plant, of course, you couldn't, this would be on the east side of the wall, because this looks like a walkway, there wouldn't be much room. But here, there could be a planter, and it would show on above the wall, if you were looking at it from Ojai Avenue.
Oh, from the inside of the
Yeah, from the
courtyard?
inside. Yeah, although I know your seating in your area is not that large in there,
That's true.
but you could do a narrow plant or something there. I mean, this is more, aesthetics.
Right, right. It would look good. It
would
looks like there may
soften it.
be, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it and
Right.
condition it, but I'd really like you to seriously consider doing something with some greenery there.
I think if necessary, we could put some potted plants spaced in front of that wall.
Yeah.
just,
That way, they'll be a little bit taller, so that when you're driving through the driveway,
Right.
you pick that up. It's not something that's low on the ground that people are going to tend to wander off into.
Okay, great, thanks. So, Kathleen, did you want to?
All right, sure.
I make a comment? I just wanted to clarify too that there is a parking ingress and egress easement on this lot. So not only would those planters might be in the way of coming in the driveway, they might actually be a violation of of this parking agreement that has been submitted. So,
Oh, because of the easement?
well, there's actually a parking agreement that I gave you that actually talks about all the cross access and parking throughout that parking lot. So if he does something like that, he needs to provide documentation, and you should place a condition on him that he needs to provide documentation that he's outside any easements. Because we can't really condition him to do something that then would violate one of his easements. I just want to make sure that that easement comes first, in whatever we're asking him to do.
Yeah, the easy solution would be you could put something behind the wall and it would show up over the top of the wall, and then you wouldn't be encroaching into the easement.
Yeah, because I think of this, would you have something to say, Ojai?
I just was going to say that we had thought about that and sort of cooling down the area because it's just a big hot thing. That was partly the tree. At the same time, we don't want whatever plants are there to screen the patio because that's sort of against from my reading of it, the East End Ojai plant that's supposed to be inviting to and seen by
Absolutely.
walking
And
people.
I'm just talking about, you got 3 feet there.
Right.
And it goes from plaster to plaster to.
Yeah,
So
our
something
plan
just
was
to-
trying to
but-
put a plants on the inside, but again, you wouldn't really see them much beyond the 3-foot wall because then you're getting into we're screening the dining area. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah, right, depending on how tall you go with it.
Right.
What you put there.
Right.
You could always do it an accent. I mean, if you had a couple pots on the inside with something that was tall, you still have that view going in and out, and it's just more of an accent to
something
soften
you
it. This is
do
more of an
anyways.
aesthetic.
Yeah,
It's an aesthetic thing.
I think
It's-
putting them in front of the wall where the previous tenant had them, it was just jumbled and not really well thought out, and it was just cars were having to go. It was a mess.
That was a disconnect.
Yeah.
For sure. And this is a much nicer project, so we're looking at it from this vantage point here. Okay, well, thank you. So, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. I think the intent is clear. What he's trying to do something nice here, and we'll leave it at that.
All right. Then I will go ahead and make a motion that we accept the CEQA categorical exemption and adopt PC resolution for the design review permit DRP 14-21 and CUP 15-01 for the outdoor dining and remodel of Ojai Burger located at 401 East Ojai Avenue. And I just wanted to make sure, and I think this would be covered on the conditions of approval. We had, let me just get to the right page here. We had our standard conditions, but we also in addition had the Community Development Department condition, and that was number 1, no special event shall be conducted on-site without a valid temporary use permit. So that would be the second one, and I believe that would be the only extra one that I saw. I just wanted to make sure that that was covered in the conditions. Okay.
What is a special event? Because I'm not sure, like somebody's rehearsal dinner for their wedding or.
Staff answer that.
No, I don't. I think it's like if you were going to advertise through social media or something, some kind of musician or something like that, where somebody actually comes in and is eating, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about some other type of draw that you would have.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, because in your
sort of case by case, you come in, do I need a permit for this for the event?
right, so something that you want to talk. Go ahead.
Just, it's a bit of a gray line, but a common way to think about it is there a separate advertising above and beyond the restaurant's regular advertising? So a rehearsal dinner would just be the restaurant.
Right.
They call and make a reservation for 20 for the dinner.
Right.
Versus a a musician presenting a concert
Right.
would be a special draw separately advertised. That would be a special event requiring a temporary use permit. The large party dinner would be within your normal permit.
We'll feel it out when we do it, and you'll tell me if it's wrong or right at some point. All right.
Okay. I think we wanted a little discussion here at this point.
I feel pretty strongly about adding the corbel detail. I don't know how the rest of the commissioners feel. I feel this is to me, this, like, I don't want to give you the wrong impression that I think this is a great improvement. It looks great, but I feel as it is right now, it's just something about it doesn't feel quite right. And I really thought about this for many hours, and I finally honed in on what doesn't feel right about it is the lack of the corbels. So that's, from my perspective, what I would like to say.
So we would need to get the language in there.
Well, there's different ways to deal with that, though. Like, for instance, hanging plants off the beams. That in the corners where the posts are. That also gives an element. This is a dress-up kind of element. It's not structural, so we're asking to dress up. I just don't know how much of that you can condition, the dress-up. The added corbels, it's a dress-up item. I'm not sure it's essential to the project. I'm not sure if it really carries it that much better. I personally like corbels, but I could see other ways to achieve that. Hanging plants is cool. Pot plants hanging in the front, that's another way. So there's lots of different ways to doll it up. And I'm not sure if we can condition all those, or we should be conditioning them.
Well, let's ask that question.
Yes, you can, if you make the findings,
Okay.
as we've talked about before, that it's compatibility, and you're saying it's, or they're wanting to do Spanish colonial revival, and if you think that's compatible with the intent, should you? That's another question. I think, you can bring the applicant back up and ask him, how would he like to dress it up if we're going to place a condition on you to add some more architectural detail onto those posts? Ask him what he would like to do and work from there. And if that's what you want to do, that's how I would recommend it, because he may have a preference. I mean, with the drought the way it is, maybe they don't want to do, potted plants that require more watering and more upkeep. I just suggest usually that you have a little dialogue with them before you just, rein him in and give him.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think one is architectural and the other is more of a, plant is a temporary.
Accessory.
Yeah, accessory, that's right. So I agree with Mac. I think a simple corbel detail, and the architect should know exactly what we're talking about, but if you need more clarification on that, we can go there. I think that would just add another little punch to the design, which would more than likely enhance it. The other condition I like to apply would be scaling up the upper trellis beams to 3x6s. So I would put forward two conditions. One's that corbels be included at the posts supporting the overhang and the trellis, and that we would be trying to think there. Let me see this. Yeah. Okay. Corbels at the posts supporting the overhang and trellis, and increasing the size of the upper trellis members from 2x6 to 3x6. That's just really simple, little things, but they make a difference.
It's a key location, too, downtown.
Should we ask the applicant how they feel about that?
Yeah, I thought that we had got a clear sign from them already, but sure, speak.
I'm happy to put on some corbels.
Yeah.
There's no reason to fear that I won't. I just would like to get going.
Sure.
Right? So if I can go to corbels.com and put up some fake corbels, I'm happy to do it. But you're right, they're not structural, and I'm always like, in principle, if it's not structural. If it's a fake detail, like sometimes they put those little circles on the top of the Spanish buildings, which are the fake drain lines.
Right.
It looks cute, but it's not real.
Well,
But-
there's a right way to do it. I got to say, it can be done real funky.
Right.
Or it can look like it's actually doing something, and that's
Right.
what we want. So I think as part of that, we're going to require seeing a detail on it that you could have your architect bring back to our community development director for final approval as part
Okay.
of the condition.
So the process is we get a detail to her as soon
Right.
as possible, and then
Right.
okay. The wood size of the
That's
wood
a-
makes no difference to me.
No brainer.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So, so I will amend my motion and include, I don't know that I need to repeat it, but adding the corbels and upsizing the members on the trellis to a 3x6. And do I need to call a condition number, or will you actually take care of that?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Well, it should be added as a condition number, so it's clear that, so it's very clear that what the
Oh,
commission
where?
is approving. Because we can't be,
Right, so I'm
staff
adding
can't
those.
rewrite resolutions later.
Right, so I'm adding those two conditions to my previous motion.
And I would suggest that the language for those conditions should be that the applicant shall revise the trellis and patio overhang design to add corbels to be approved by the community development director prior to the issuance of any building permit for the project.
Good.
And 2, the applicant shall increase the size of the upper beams for the trellis to be 3x6.
Agreed.
Well, I thought I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you wanted her to number them.
Oh, well, and they should be numbered as,
Yeah.
where would they fit? Condition?
Yeah, I was looking to
toward the
see
end?
where they would fit.
We can just add them at the end. Condition number 23 and 24.
23 and 24.
What usually standard is we do another subsection underneath where it says Ojai Valley Sanitary, we would add planning commission conditions.
Okay.
And that becomes like a heading, and then it's very clear that those were added on during the
Okay.
meeting.
Okay, agreed.
How do we, Mac puts on, we talk about a condition of corbels. And now we're going to leave it up to Kathy to determine what we have determined is a corbel. I think there's too much, I think we have to get a little bit clearer on.
Well, I think it's as simple as, Kathy, if you'd like one of the planning commissioners to come in and take a look at it with you, just to give a second opinion.
I mean, I can draw a quick.
I found something. I just want to just run it by you.
No, we don't need to go there right now.
Along those lines, because we didn't get a landscape plan, I mean, we got, just.
That if we're conditioning a corbel.
Exactly.
And he goes.
Yeah, simply, so that's a corner corbel, so when you have a post.
We
that's
did
supporting
have, we actually operate as like an architectural review board also.
Yeah, just.
Yeah.
Excuse me, commissioners?
Or
We have
sits
too
on
many
top
conversations
of
at once,
it,
and the
looks
public
like
cannot
it
follow
slides
this.
together. That's the authentic part.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, we have too
Yeah.
many conversations at once, and the public nor the
Yeah,
secretary
I
nor
was talking
anyone
to
can
the
follow
applicant.
it.
What can I do for you?
In other words, you need to rehave the conversation you just had with the applicant, so the
Yeah,
entire
everybody
room can hear.
So
and one at a
basically, what
time.
we were doing, we were looking at an example of a corbel, and I think it's going to require a little more clarification to the applicant to get that understanding, which we will gladly do. We can. I believe that.
Do you want to leave that up to the community development director, or do you want to have another trip through the commission?
No, we don't want him to come back to the commission. I'm thinking, I want to keep this thing simple. It's already gone too complex as it already is. It's simply an advisory capacity as a planning commissioner / architect, whether it be myself or Mac, that we give him an idea of what we're looking for. At that point, it's not we don't violate the Brown Act that way. At that point in time, once he has the concept, he goes back to community development with the plan, and it's looked by Kathleen.
I think that's reasonable, and the key is that the final decision on this would be by Kathleen.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so potentially then, I mean, we could email the applicant an example, or they could email us, or how?
Right, I mean, there are a couple of, probably the simplest way to do this, Ajay, is for you just to come by my office, Matilaha. I have your phone number, you have my phone number. Let's do that in the next couple days. Okay? And then that will get you rolling. Simple enough?
Yes.
Okay.
And you might add, just for the benefit of the public who may not be following this discussion, Just explain what a corbel is for the public's benefit.
Well, I'll try to keep it simple.
Yeah.
It's an architectural element that you see typically in Mediterranean, Spanish, Andalusian type of architecture. And it sits atop a column or a post. There are a couple, I think there's a general overview of what a corbel is. It does take on a couple different looking profiles in terms of what it accomplishes, whether it be in a corner or atop a post and extending and projecting to each side of it. So that would be the simple comment. Structurally, in its day, it actually helps support the column or the beam that rested upon it. And so that's what it is. It's designed as a support, but in our case these days, it is aesthetics. So I hope that helps. Now, we have an motion on the table right now. I think it's clearly defined.
Yes. Is there a second?
We need a second.
I'll second it.
I think we're ready for roll call, Sherry. There's no further discussion, right?
I'll vote yes.
Merck? Jagiello? Jagiello?
Yes.
Isabella?
Yes.
Nolan?
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Nicklin?
Yes.
Wojciechowski?
Yes.
Okay. Congratulations, you're on your way. And we'll be talking soon. At this point in time, I'm going to recuse myself because our next item on the agenda is a project of which I'm affiliated with, and I'm going to turn it over to Vice Chair Commissioner Nolan.
We'll swap again. All right, so now we're on item 2, and this is for a conditional use permit, CUP 14-01, and design review permit, DRP 14-05, for Phase 2 of a boutique winery, Topa Mountain Winery, located at 821 West Ojai Avenue in Ojai. The parcel number is 024-0-020-100. The general plan land use designation of the site is general commercial, and zoning classification is general commercial. Property owner applicant Larry Guerra, Topa Mountain Winery, and the representative is Josh Griffin, and is the architect at Cornerstone Architects. May we hear from staff, please?
Yes, I just would like to point out that we have a new planner here tonight, and I'd like to introduce her. This is Catherine Leisure, and she's now with us working through site-specific, thank you, had a moment there. And so with that, I'd like her to turn this over to her for her to give the staff report. Thanks.
Good evening, Commissioners. It's nice to meet all of you. Tonight before you is Topa Mountain Winery, and this came before you back on June 4th, 2014. At that time, you approved Phase 1, which allowed some demolition at the rear of an old shed structure and some renovations of the existing block building on site so that they could begin some wine processing and storage. The CUP that was approved allowed for only the wine processing and storage, and it did not include approval of what is before you tonight. It also didn't include approval of the design review part that's before you, which is for the demolition of the existing showroom that's located at the front of the site, right adjacent to the main street, and some additions and renovations to the exterior of the building. So I'll give you a little more background. Phase 2 came in on October 31st, 2014. They were required, subject to conditions, to submit Phase 2 by November 1st, 2014, so they got everything in as they were required to. You've all been out to the site, it sounds like, so you've seen that there's really not much going on. They are in the process of working under their building permit to do the renovations that they were approved under Phase 1 to that CMU building that's there, and some demolition work. This is coming in now. They really haven't started the original approvals. What they want to do is keep moving forward so they can get this going and get the winery functioning. So the CUP will allow the boutique winery use, which is going to include the wine tasting facility, a deli that comes on site, and also some special events that may take place. If you've read through everything, the special events were potentially going to cause a problem. They've self-regulated themselves, as if you read through the staff report, limiting the hours that the special events can take place and also when they can start and end in order to mitigate any potential traffic impacts that could come onto Ojai Avenue due to a large number of people coming and going from the property at one time. As far as the design of the building, they're going with the mission-style architecture. The standard, they're going to have the white-colored, smooth stucco, dark stained wood. Some corbels are on there for you. And then mission-style two-piece tile roofing. That's a custom red blend color they're going to have in there. Overall, the total main structure will be 2,355 square feet, and what that includes is removal of the front wall of that building that's out there right now, and reconfiguring that wall to come out a little bit and add on so the wine tasting room can be there, and then to provide that front facade. So it'll have some windows and doors and give them a nice view out onto the street and just kind of decorate that existing building. One of the big concerns with staff was the environmental on this. They did provide a number of environmental studies, which we've provided to you in your packets. We did read through all of those. The site was not considered historically significant. It didn't meet any of the standards through the phase one that they did. In addition to that, the traffic study showed the only potential impact could have been from this, the special events that could take place. So what the applicant chose to do was to self-limit. So just please be aware that if you try to make any changes to that, you could potentially put them into having to go through more environmental review and an initial study, because they're doing it to themselves in self-limiting, which stops the city from having to do it. So if we move forward and try to change anything, you can open up a can of worms, make them have to go through more environmental review. We felt that with them self-limiting, it does stop the potential traffic impacts. They've also self-limited on the number of guests that can be there, and those are in the conditions of approval. So that means if they were to have a huge event with 500 people, that allows the city to come in and say you're in violation of your conditions of approval, and that can put their CUP in jeopardy. So it's to their best interest to comply with the conditions of approval that have been placed on them by staff and hopefully by the Planning Commission. Since this has come before you before, you've seen the site plan. The site plan came before you with phase one, and it wasn't a part of the approval, but you were able to see it. It includes a lot of grapevines going in, some recreational spaces, outdoor dining, a stage, and pergolas, just to kind of create the atmosphere they're looking for, which is to just entice tourists to come in, do some wine tasting, bring business into the city, and let them visit there. I really just want to answer questions if you have anything else. I know you've seen this before. I don't want to just kind of drag on. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything for you.
They can still obtain a temporary use permit for activities they want, right?
Well, the special events will be
Case by
approved.
case, like for instance, if they,
if they go beyond with the special events, they're allowed to have special events there through the CUP. That was
right,
one of
but
the
to say
main
they,
reasons.
so they're not allowed to go beyond that
No.
whatsoever? Got it.
That's it.
Even if they came in to get a permit for that particular event?
I think that would be something we'd have to look on a case-by-case basis, but with the conditions of approval specifically limiting the number of people and what they can be doing there, they might be locked into that, I would think, legally.
Can you just keep us on track in terms of what we have to do with regard to phase three? Is there anything we need to do today in order to not mess ourselves up going forward?
Are you specifically talking about placing conditions on phase two, anticipating phase three, so we don't end up with a confusion as to in phase three? And I think that's, Matt, you might want to talk to that, but I think the concern is something similar to what's happened.
Concern?
Well, kind of similar with Weil,
yeah.
And I think in this case, the phasing, they're coming in individually for each phase as opposed to getting an overall approval for the entire project and then pulling different building permits, which I think caused the confusion with Weil. I think here, the last time with phase one, what we did was we had a condition that said by such and such a date, that's what the commission put on there, that you had to apply for phase two, so it wasn't segmented or really, the review continued. We sort of, as Catherine indicated, allowed him to get going and then come in as, so to speak, the ball was already rolling and do the second. So I guess the question would be, Matt, then what kind of conditions you can place on him to complete Phase 3? And I think what I would do is probably ask the applicant what additional things he thinks that he'll be coming in with Phase 3 and at what time, and then maybe work within his parameters to draft a similar condition if that's how you felt was necessary. Does that sound adequate, Matt?
Yeah, I think part of it is that, as I understand it, with the first two phases of this project, they knew already what Phase 1 would look like and what Phase 2 would look like, and they just wanted to divide up the process, so it made sense to condition them that Phase 2 had to be started or brought for review within a certain period of time. What I'm not sure is, and this will be a question of the applicant, do they have the same level of knowledge and specificity as to Phase 3? If not, then it wouldn't make sense to condition them, oh, you must bring Phase 3 in within 6 months or a year. If they have it identified and they know what they're going to do, then it might make sense to condition them. But also, so I think that's the key question there. And the other element that we've run into trouble with in previous projects is if the whole thing is approved but without specific phasing, it gets complicated, as we've learned. Here, if the condition isn't added requiring Phase 3 to be applied for at a certain time, because their approvals are limited to Phase 1 and Phase 2, they couldn't do anything. They haven't sought approval for Phase 3 yet, and so we wouldn't have the problem we've had in other projects where the whole thing was approved at once and they tried to do it in pieces. So yeah.
So would there be any value then really to even caring about Phase 3, because there's no overlap, right?
At this point, there's no overlap, so it's fine to leave it be, or it's fine to ask, and if they know what they want to do, then you could condition it within a certain time. But from a on-the-ground perspective, there's no difference.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
I would
Oh,
just
sorry.
add that I think a pertinent question to ask them is if they're getting their entitlements here, do they anticipate that they're going to want to pull separate building permits and final those off, separately, and that would be the only. You look confused. I'm sorry. So there's two ways that people phase things. They might be getting entitlements for Phase 2, and then come to staff and say, well, now I did this part, but I can't get the grapes in to do this, and I can't do that, and can't I open this part? So I think that would be an appropriate question to ask them. Do you understand that you're not going to be able to open until everything is completed with Phase 2? So, to make sure that they understand that.
Any other questions? No? All right, then I'm going to open the public hearing, and can we hear from the applicant?
Good evening. I'm Josh Griffin, project manager at Cornerstone Architects. I do have a PowerPoint. It's basically just the plans you have before you, but maybe for the benefit of the public, I'll go ahead and turn that on. If I don't know if I have control of that. So you've seen this before from the last presentation we gave. There's been very little change. It's just been a little bit more detail added. The basic idea is still there. Our intent has always been to go through Phase 2, and in a sense, this has been designed as a final project, Phase 2. We anticipate Phase 3, but what that will look like is still unclear. It could honestly depend on the market and how popular this becomes. So in that vein, we have designed Phase 2 to be a complete project as is. That's why all the landscapes in there, everything that's required is in there, the special events are in there, so that if it comes down to it, this could run for multiple years. If it takes off instantly, Phase 3 may be right around the corner. Again, it depends. You've seen all these plans before, but obviously for the public. The site plan, everyone's been out there, everybody sees it, they drive by it every day. It's been a blighted site for years, if not decades. What we're intending to do is remove a lot of that pavement and impervious surface, dress it up with some nice landscaping, and make it an inviting lot for visitors and locals alike. You can tell that this project, this site, is faced on one side by the street and on the other side by the bike path. So we've, deemed to make this as accessible as possible to pedestrian traffic, bicycle traffic, as well as automobile traffic. So we've opened it up to both sides of the property as much as possible to allow that to happen. In terms of the floor plan, really, there's an existing CMU building. We will remove the front, like was mentioned, and the only additional conditioned space will be the restrooms at the rear of the property. We will have the attached trellis area for seating and a few detached structures around the perimeter. Or not around the perimeter, but in the garden areas. The elevations, maybe I'll skip these ones, just go to the, we can see, here's an example of the detached structures, mimicking some of the stuff that's going on with inside the CMU building with the trusses and the trellises, and the red tile roof as well. The street elevation, this is an important element, because obviously this is what people will see when they drive by. And we're trying to form a compromise between having a nice public view, but also trying to make this place that we're creating a haven from all the noise and the bustle of the traffic. So we're trying to form this compromise by having a face view to it, but also having a courtyard feel on the inside. So that's why we have this wall, this undulating wall that curves around. It'll be covered with a lot of landscape, to soften it. But we're trying to compromise between having a street view, but also having some privacy there. In phase 3, the intention would be to replace some of that wall with building. And I can kind of go in that more detail as it comes up, but that wall would form part of it, would be removed, and the new building would form part of the courtyard. Again, the mission style, the white plaster, the red roofs, the corbels on the posts, and a lot of rock work to increase the texture. It may not be clear, but that element on the left on the top picture there, which will be the entrance to the courtyard, stands as kind of like a gatehouse. That is intended to become incorporated into the entrance to the third phase. So that would remain, and the building would fill in the gap between that structure and the CMU building, and then wrap around towards the street, forming a cohesive whole with the courtyard in the middle. And then the back with the trellis and more rock. And the landscape plan, obviously we've talked about it before, but it hasn't really changed much. The bocce ball courts, the grapes, if you've been out there, you've seen the views, and everything will accentuate that. So that's pretty much my presentation. Again, one of the questions you guys were discussing was about the phase 2 to phase 3. Phase 3, obviously, we want it, but phase 2 is designed as a whole as is. I do have, maybe one of my questions, maybe this can be answered, is if at some point we do want a larger event, is it possible to get a temp permit for a special event that goes over this, or are we, it may never happen, but I just want to know if we're locked into this even without the ability to get a temporary permit for a special event that goes larger. So that'd be a question for staff, but I'm able to answer any questions.
Direct that question to staff, if you could answer that, please.
Well, I think in looking at the traffic report, and Catherine might have to help me with this, but I think the real issue was the timing of when people, obviously, the limitations on the events has to do with the traffic generated on to 33 and down the way. So the idea is, by them self-limiting, is that they were off-peak hours. So I think it would really depend on one, I think size is one thing, because obviously we know in Ojai there are some exceptions made for these kind of routine, or I should say annually, it should not routine, events they have here. But I think that that would be kind of the question we would look at is, how large a group is it? When are they coming in? When are they coming off? So are they in during peak hours? Or are they people that are already here for another event? Staying in the hotels. We certainly would be open to looking at however you proposed it. So I'm not saying no. I'm just saying you need to know where your issue is, and that's really putting the traffic during peak hours. So.
I just want to make sure it wasn't a blanket statement.
Oh, no, I don't think it's ever a no.
You can't do it. Okay.
And I think it just depends. If very clearly, if you were coming to us and saying, this is going to be utilized for something where we know there's already a lot of people in Ojai because there's already another function going on, but it has something to do with the tournament or something, then we would certainly look at that and look at how, what the impacts are to traffic, because I believe that's the only thing, correct, was traffic?
Yeah, the major impact from the special events on traffic was the peak hours that they'd be going there. And I think one thing we would also have to look at with a bigger event taking place would also be parking. You're pretty limited on what parking, you have beyond what's needed per the square footage of the buildings. But we all know that if there's a special event, there's going to be a lot of cars. So I think that would be something you would have to come forward and propose to us too, is how you were going to accommodate all the additional cars that would be coming, not only traffic impacts, but also where they would go.
Yeah, and that's already under work with the inn. We just wanted to make sure that we weren't, that if we work it out.
And that is built into the findings required under section 10-2204 for a TUP, which include that it not interfere with existing use and enjoyment of neighboring or future developments, neighboring existing or future developments, and would not create traffic or pedestrian hazards. So the city would have to look at the traffic element of it.
Yeah.
And it would be, if it was not too many cars and not at the wrong time, it'd be an easy approval, I would suspect. If it was something at peak hours with several hundred people, it would be more complex.
Okay.
Oh, and those are approved by the director.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
Are they official bocce courts?
Yes. Well, what I've drawn is official size, so.
I was a little confused about the paving. It looks like there's 30,000 square feet of impervious paving that's remaining, and then but then you've got 47,000 square feet of pervious paving, so I'm not clear on which is which.
Well, pretty much the majority of the site was paved, and we removed everything on the east side. That half will be removed. So the portion of the pavement along the west side is existing, and just a little bit of turnaround at the top will be new because that was dirt before. So the overall change is much less impervious surface, but we're removing a lot more than we're adding. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
So I don't know if that makes sense.
I'm not reading that.
Is the number? Are the numbers off?
I don't know. It just maybe needs to be clarified a little bit on the site plan.
So
Question for you, Josh.
I don't know if this question's been answered yet or not, but I'm not sure what the numbers. What I believe they're correct, 'cause I've worked through it many times. But we removed the whole eastern portion of the pavement. We're keeping the pavement on the west side, and we're adding the 10 or 12 parking spots at the very end of the turnaround. So we end up with a net loss of pavement. That answers enough.
I can clarify a little bit if you'd like. Right now, the site has a total of 66,744 area of essentially impervious area, which includes the foundation of the building itself, the footprint of the building, and then all the concrete on the entire site. So by the time they're finished and they remove a huge chunk of that concrete, they're going to be dropping that down to 22,520 square feet of impervious area. Essentially, the water can't go through. So they're going from 85% of the lot area being covered in essentially concrete right now to only 34% of the lot being covered in concrete. So it's a huge reduction that they're going to be doing in removing a ton of concrete that's out there right now.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Chester?
Josh, can you remind us the idea behind Phase 3? Just give us an overview of what that would look like.
So we'll start with Phase 2. This will be the tasting room, basically in the footprint of the CMU building. This would be a tasting room for now. It would also be used at special events. Obviously, you couldn't do those at the same time. So as this tasting room takes off, what we want to do for Phase 3 is build a new tasting room coming to the the north of the existing CMU on the parking lot side, wrapping around that courtyard. And if you look at the plans closely, you can actually see a kind of a grayed-in footprint, dashed footprint, probably on the bigger one to be easier to see, but it is in there, the intention of where Phase 3 would be, forming a courtyard on the inside. That new structure would house a new, slightly larger tasting room, and that would be the main tasting room at that point during phase 3. This existing CMU building could be used for overflow tasting, but more than likely it'd be more used like a banquet room for special events and that type of thing. So we have 2 separate buildings that could be, we could have the tasting at the same time as a special event. The whole thing could be rented as a special event. It could just be tasting with overflow tasting. It gives them more flexibility for usage. And also that all has to be ironed out in terms of the CUP for phase 3. Does that make
Or are you finished?
What about the wine production part of it?
No, and that goes to a whole other question. Originally, in phase 1, the production was going to occur at the CMU building. By the time everything got approved and everything was ready to go and the construction was getting close, it was past harvest season. So the owner has basically increased his production at his house in Upper Ojai. At that point, he realized, well, maybe it made more sense to just have the tasting down here and the production up there. That being said, there's a in the corner where we call them storage, there'll be storage of the wine for the tasting, but it's also possible to have some of the fermentation process in there as well. So that little corner would basically be the production part of it. There's a window so the public can view that happening, view the barrels, view the fermentation process. It's a possibility, depending on how things take off with the market. Phase 3 could include a larger production facility on the site if it works out that way. But again, we'd have to come back for that.
I have just a question about, is this project subject then to the stormwater, the SWEP, or is this kind of what Commissioner Merck was talking about? Is it because you've removed so much impervious area? That's
because of any disturbance. When the disturbance hits an acre, so we are having a civil engineer work out all those requirements.
Okay.
For the design review, it was only required at this time to have a preliminary study, which was done, and basically that just said it would be possible to do what was required. Now we're actually having, for the building permit, those plans being made.
Okay. Yeah, because I'd hate for you guys to go through all this and then to have something like you need a giant retention pond. Is
Well,
that
and
a
that's
concern?
being looked at. There is a potential for that, the way the site, the topography is, to have actually a retention area at the rear of the property if it's needed. There's a question of how the code reads about, we are going to be actually having more water retained on site because we're removing so much
Right.
impervious area, but whether it's within the thresholds of what's required is what our civil engineer is looking at.
I also just want to say 2 things. I really think first of all, I want to thank you for the quality of your submittal package. I wish everybody's was so easy to follow and so clear. And I also think it's really inventive how you made, how you kind of put that doorway for phase 3 there. I think it's a really great feature. I think it's really cool. And one last question, sorry. Have you spoken to the trolley folks? Like, is there any agreement, formal, informal?
There's no formal agreement at this point. We'll provide it, and if the city decides that it's useful, it's there for them. If not, it could become a temporary loading, unloading area.
Okay, thanks.
So.
There is a trolley stop just down the road, so it's not that far to walk either.
Although there's no sidewalk either side of our property, so it'd be a dangerous walk.
It'd be a dangerous walk, yeah.
I was just going to add into that when we first met many moons ago and talked about this and the whole concept, in typical planning fashion, the planners, me, talked with him about doing, some stations there for charging electrical vehicles, because that's a big thing now. People that have the Teslas and stuff, they want to come in, they want to sit, and they want to do something while their car's charging. This is something that we did when we did the Tri-County path that we were doing between Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis. We also talked about some other ways, to incorporate different methodologies of transportation, and one was to include a trolley stop. Well, in talking with Greg Grant, he's not interested in having a trolley stop there. He doesn't want one, but we think in the future, not always today, because this obviously, as you noticed, the plan was, the existing building was there very long without being redeveloped. Ojai doesn't tend to turn things over in that way, so we're looking in the long term for what might be there, and even as much as having a driveway. He's just pointing out that The location and use of the trolley stop is subject to approval of the Public Works Director or City Engineer. But back to the same thing, it says utilize, I was going to say exactly what the condition says here, that if it's like typical other wineries and you have the limousines or the buses that come and they've dropped people off and they want to come back in and pick up a big group of people, not a special event, but a group of people have come together. We also wanted to make sure that that was there because they already have those existing driveway cuts there. And as we all know, dealing with Caltrans is very difficult. So it's all incorporated, and I think they've done a really good job of incorporating those existing driveway cuts into something that kind of adds to encouraging people to either one carpool together. So that was the thought. Okay.
Yeah, I think the bicycle parking, the electric vehicle stations, I think those are just really good features.
Has Complete Streets done any work on this? Because this is, turning left here is almost impossible out of this parking lot. I'm sure everybody knows that.
Well,
what's your take on that, Josh? I mean,
at certain times of day, yes, it would be difficult. More than likely, the majority of this use will probably be on the weekends when the traffic's a little bit easier. Well, it's heavier at certain times, but it's easier at other times, during rush hour. There isn't a rush hour as much as during the weekend. We've actually, at the very beginning of this project, we approached Caltrans and said, we actually have room for 3 lanes there. If we're going to have a ton of traffic, wouldn't it make sense to have a turn lane there, for not only our use, but future development along that area? And Caltrans wasn't ready to go down that road. So we can't do anything with Caltrans. But yeah, we do understand that, and luckily we turn right and we have Country Club right there. So that's a place to, to direct traffic to other places too.
And a quick point to keep in mind is that should Caltrans change its mind in the future, you've not put structures in that space where the lane would go. So there's still room there,
Yes.
Although Caltrans is Caltrans.
good. Well, I had a couple comments. First of all, thank you for that great presentation. I think it's a really a wonderful project, and I think it's going to be, one thing I find really exciting about it, it's probably one of the first businesses that is actually going to front the bike lane, or the bike trail, and so I think it's in the gateway position coming into Ojai, but I think that's going to be really exciting and kind of fun to watch and see how that works out. But I just had a couple comments, and one of them was actually the access from the bike trail into the project. It just opens up into the parking lot. So I had a little concern about that. Would there be a way to actually make a path that wasn't just oriented to the parking lot? More, safety, but also really being inviting, because a lot of people do walk and ride bikes on the weekend. So I think, there's an opportunity to really welcome those people in. And then the other comment that I had was on the street side. I understand the courtyard and wanting to have a buffer from Ojai Avenue. I mean, I get that, and also to be able to secure the property at night. But at the same time, our focus, especially in the downtown areas, is kind of opening up to the street. So it's kind of a little juggling or a balancing act there. How do you create that courtyard, but at the same time don't feel like you're walling the public out? And I applaud you for putting the sidewalk or the path and access in the front, and realize there's no connection on either side. But ultimately, with Complete Streets, we want to see a sidewalk and possibly even a bike lane on Ojai Avenue on that side of the street, right in front of yours. So looking at opening that up a little bit, I don't know, maybe that's just a major change, maybe that's a part of a phase 3, I'm not sure. And then I know that your main entrance is actually not facing the street, it's actually from the parking lot. So it feels a little insulated. And that's a comment, I don't know, maybe my fellow commissioners may have a thought about that.
Well, I thought also the bike path element to this. First of all, I think it's a great project, and I'm looking forward to going there myself. And the bike path entry is something that I thought could be enhanced as a big plus, because there's a couple of bike rental places in Ojai now, and a lot of people are doing bikes. And also the horses, too. There's this horse corral idea of putting a little corral over there that they can strap up their horses, and it could be a destination place because people do a little riding. I noticed they've been trying to do that at Ojai Roaster and out on the street, and people kind of like it, as long as they don't do their stuff right in front of you when you have your coffee. But here, that element is back in that area where the bike path is. That kind of real suited for horses as well. So I'm with Kathleen. I think that entry right there would, I think, suit to upgrade that access from the bike path and make it more of an element that was inviting. I think could add to the character of the venue. Like, I'm going to take my bike to the winery instead of my car, because a lot of people in Ojai have really good access to that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then just looking at the safety issues, with it being in the car park of cars coming in, and if there was a horse element, that there's some sort of safety between the vehicle and the bicycles, the people, and the horse element. It's a very simple thing.
Yeah, honestly, the horse element didn't even cross our minds at any point. But the bicycles, we've always kind of balanced between access and security of the bikes, because if you price bicycles nowadays, they're almost as much as cars. So we wanted to have that security of being able to bring the bikes into the courtyard area and storing them there, but balance, and then also having the automobile access from the parking lot. It's potential that we could shift the gate. So it's more in line with the plant strip between the two interior parking stall areas and having a path through there.
Yeah, I think what we're saying, Josh, though, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the entry location in itself isn't bad, but having to come in, and what do you do when you get there to the parking lot? So what I think we're saying, or I'm saying anyway, is to create a parking area for the bikes right there as you come in, wherever the gate is, so they're not having to go through the parking lot and find that. So I can't really see where you would have that here on your site.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, in terms of security of the bikes, if we had the bike storage right there next to that gate, and then they had to come into the wine tasting area where they would not have a visual on their bikes anymore, it may cause some concern, which is why we had it located them at this point in a place where they're visible. Obviously, where we've located them in phase 3 could possibly become structure, in which case that location would have to move, and we're contemplating more towards the back between the existing CMU building and the covered patio, where it would be closer to that gate entrance, but still be secure. We could definitely dress up that back gate so it is a more inviting element, some kind of a trellis or something, and a signage so that people know this is where we come in, and with safety striping and better access through the parking lot, it could be safer to walk your bike maybe to where the bike storage was. I don't know that, I'd be too comfortable leaving a $2,000 or $3,000 bike right along the bike trail, no matter what type of lock I use.
I think you come through the gate for sure.
Yeah,
and get on the property.
Yeah. So I mean, we do have a plant strip there that maybe we could put some bike storage area there for people who are comfortable with that, and have one on the interior for people who want to keep an eye on their bikes. In phase 3, obviously we'll be dressing up the front element off the street a little bit better, and at that point we could incorporate maybe more of a street entrance for bicycles into that courtyard right off the street, but that would be for phase 3.
I like where the bike rack is. I think, as a bike rider, I appreciate the security of having the bike there. And I think also, Kathy, you were concerned about people riding their bikes across the parking lot, but I don't know if there's going to be that many cars in the parking lot from where they're coming on the bikes. I mean, that seems fairly
there is more of an
secure.
Overflow, except for during special events, or employee parking may happen there.
Yeah, I think the point was, actually a couple points. Right now, it's kind of, the back door, and you just go into the parking lot. But I think if it could get played up, and you just actually gave a couple suggestions, I think it's going to, I'm projecting here, but I have a feeling that it's going to be one of your primary entrances, I have a feeling you're going to have a lot of bike and pedestrian access, maybe not immediately, but down the road when people find out about it. And once again, we've talked about this with the Complete Street Set or multimodal transportation, that we're not just talking about the car, we're trying to get away from a car-centric approach and have that street visibility. So even, I hope you go to a phase 3, but if you don't, you're still not going to have what I would call a street face. It's still kind of a parking lot face to get into the winery. And I don't know if you could make a secondary gate access from your I'm going to call it your sidewalk that you're putting in. And I think a good location would actually be from that sidewalk, and it would just be on the west side of where you're showing the bike parking. And then you're giving a little more of a street face and welcoming people off the street. And I do realize that you only have that sidewalk. But as a matter of fact, right now we're in the process of having a Complete Streets workshop this week, and the whole thrust of that is about looking at the entire city, but especially Ojai Avenue, and increasing pedestrian and bicycle access, and of course, to our businesses too. So, Mac?
I would concur with your comment on that. I mean, I understand where you guys are going with, particularly with that, the gateway entrance, trying to kind of push people over that way. But I also really think Kathy makes a very valid point about not directing so much, everything through a parking lot entrance. And I do think that somewhere in that vicinity, either by because either maybe by the trolley stop or somewhere in that area, I think that there should be a pedestrian entrance. I think it would be helpful. I don't know how would you feel about that? I mean, are you opposed to it, or would you consider it? What's your feelings on this?
Considered it. Yeah, we've actually considered it. We're trying to balance noise, security, and all that, and but we understand what you're saying is down the road when these sidewalks are hopefully heavily used, it would be nice to have that access there, and it may end up dovetailing that at the same time that phase 3 happens is the same time the sidewalks happen and the bike trail happen, and so we can incorporate it definitely more structurally in there. But meanwhile, yeah, we could put a gate in that wall and dress it up to have a pedestrian access there.
Sorry to interrupt, but just correct me if I'm wrong, but you already have a 10-foot wide wood access gate right next to the trolley stop.
Yeah, that's more for delivery
Okay.
or maintenance of the
You
gardens.
could always work with that,
We could always work, and
open
we could
that. And
see if we just open that up, although they're walking right by the trash enclosure to do that. But, I mean, it could be as easy as just opening that door and putting a sign there. Or putting one more centrally located right off the center of the property. So.
But correct me, there's no sidewalks there now, right? I mean, so you can't have people walking in the street to get access to the property. So right now, it's a moot point.
But they're actually putting in a DG sidewalk.
But only from our property line and on either side.
Exactly.
There's no way to get there.
Right, and I did make that point that I realize that it's like the sidewalk that goes to nowhere, and I know that's an issue in a lot of places. But where I was going with it was, where the Complete Streets and the city is looking at having pedestrian and bicycle access on both sides. We do not have it right now.
No.
You're
I'm
correct.
just thinking if we should just concentrate, the discussion on the back of the property, because that's kind of the only thing that makes sense right now in terms of getting there,
Right. That's my intention for the bikes was more to the rear of the bike path entry, not so much the road entry. I noticed that's where the bikes are up by the road, and I'm looking at this as the access is going to get very. I think people are going to use the bike path a lot, and I think that's going to be a kind of draw for you. And what I was saying, instead of just coming into the middle of the parking lot and then making your way to some bike rack where it's going to be, you're going to hardly even know where it is by the time you get there. What do? Get off your bike, get on your bike. I'm saying if you created a space right off of the bike path, right as you get into the property, where you put your bike right there and you create some kind of entry, throw in a horse corral over there, you can really invite and create an invitation to the bike path use. That could be played up. It could be a marketing thing, and I just think a lot of people will come through that area. But to come through your bike and then find your way to this bike rack way over here, it just seems like you're not utilizing the bike path entry as much as you could.
I think there's really two different kinds of bike riders we're talking about here. Because you've got your recreational kind of bike riders who are going to come in the gate and just stop. And then you've got serious bike riders who are going to actually come down Ojai Avenue and turn in the front. And I want to be seeing my bike the whole time I'm there. I'm not going to park it back by the bike path and just leave it there. So
Yeah.
I think maybe having bike racks in two different locations may be a good
Yeah,
idea.
There you go.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
it's-
yeah. I mean,
From the two entrances.
Yeah.
We're actually in that tree well in the corner of the back. I mean, there's probably enough room there that we could put a bike rack in that
Yeah.
little planter area and dress up the entrance to lead them to that point. And they can either leave their bike there or they can continue on. So, we'll definitely we can definitely work a bike rack into that.
Yeah, and I still think having that, definitely the one at the bike trail, but having an entrance on the street side would be a good thing. And that would address, like you said, the more serious bike rider. There are people that don't use the bike trail and actually ride on Ojai Avenue. But I think there's potential there for a lot of customers.
Yeah, well, there's access to the Ojai Valley Inn, people who come through there and walk that back path. They come right through the tennis courts, right there, that little gate.
I'm looking forward to playing bocce ball and watching my bike at the same time. Should be really good.
Depends on what court you're on, you see.
Yeah.
If you're on the far court.
It'd be really cool.
Did you have a comment, Matt?
I was just going to remind the chair that once Mr. Grant has finished his presentation, that should
Public.
move to the next public commenter.
Yes. Okay. Do we have any other questions for the applicant?
No.
Nope. Okay, thank you. Are there any, I don't have any speakers card, but is there any members of the audience public that would like to come up and comment or? No? Okay, then I'm going to close the public and open it up for discussion with our commissioners.
Well, I think it's a fantastic project. I think they've done an incredible job. I'm looking forward to the landscape element of it, having a vineyard in the middle of town. I think it's going to be very good. The bocce courts, everything about it's just going to look so great in a otherwise unsightly area. Other than the ideas that we talked about as far as the rear access for bikes and that, but the potential for the bike path, I think it's all good.
Yeah, I can echo what you've said, and again, a great improvement to the gateway to our city, and I just think all the homework has been done very efficiently as far as all the studies and all, I's dotted, T's crossed. I think they've taken in good consideration of the neighbours as well, with what's going on and with the the events and all that kind of thing. What else did I write here? Having the vineyard feel around, that's great, and it's nice to see a bit more greening of the city.
Anyone make a motion?
I'm sorry, I just
Go
want to
ahead.
interject if I can, and thank
Sure.
you, Vice Chair. I just want to point out the one thing that in the discussions brought to my mind when you were talking about the front entrance. The applicant has tried very diligently to move this project along, including having meetings with the other outside agencies besides the city of Ojai. So I just want to point out that on page 4 of 10 in your resolution, we do have conditions in there that if there are changes that take place because of consultation with Ventura County Fire or Caltrans, that then those changes that make changes to the site plan, that then they need to come back for review and approval. And that's something that, I just want to point this out, that, because we're not, in some cases, because we're not a full-serve city, in the other cases, because we have Caltrans as our right-of-way along Ojai Avenue, applicants do kind of get in this catch-22 position where these people will not review their project until they have entitlements through the city. And that's what this particular applicant found was the case. And so while he did try to dot all his i's and cross all his t's, he still is without some feedback from some of these agencies, so that is why you see those conditions in there, and he's well aware of it. We've discussed it with him, and we hope that isn't the case, but we hope that Caltrans, but as Matt said, Caltrans is Caltrans. So, and whether or not, what improvements and what kind of encroachment permits he needs through them, I don't know, and what he's going to be working with them. And that's one kind of unknown area, and I just wanted to point that out. That is why those conditions are in there. Thanks.
I got a question.
Yes.
A question for staff. Yes, so what are we got a design review permit that we're approving as well, or working on as far as, well, we're working on a CUP and a design review permit. If I want to condition that, okay, well, how would I put this? The rear access for the bike racks, for instance, that would be a design review issue, correct? It wouldn't affect the CUP. I'm confused on which one relates to some of the suggestions we may make or the conditions we may make.
Well, I think the use permit is for the use, and so if you're finding that the use is going to be a boutique winery, and if you're finding that it needs to have a condition to fully utilize the bike path back there, and that you feel that gate enhances the utilization, like, for instance, multimodal transportation or things like that. And that has to do with the compatibility of that use, because that use is one of those determinations of similar use, if you remember, where we were saying impacts, traffic, et cetera, and if you find that is something that you feel is necessary to keep those impacts consistent with other things that were allowed in that zone district, you get it onto the use permit. That's where I would do it. Don't you agree, Matt? Because otherwise it's a design fee. You're saying it's necessary for how the use functions. It's not a design element as far as architecture and those types of things. So that's where I would put it.
Okay.
Making the finding that it's necessary to ensure that the impacts associated with the use, the boutique winery, the wine tasting, et cetera, remain compatible with the zone district.
All right. What do you
So I'd like-
go ahead, Chester.
Can I ask the applicant how they feel about some of the suggestions we made about the bike storage area or bike rack at the rear of the property?
Yeah, reopen the public
Yeah,
hearing
I'll
for that.
reopen the public hearing. And please come forward.
I'm actually a cyclist as well. Oh, I'm Larry Guerra, the owner of this project. And so, yeah, we've reviewed this location, and, it does make more sense to have something closer to that bike path. So it's a visual, you come in, you park it. It's important that, you can keep an eye on your bike. So I would envision that, people in the back, if they come in the back and park there, they could be sitting in the covered areas, I guess what I'm getting to is probably 2 bike racks is the simple solution. One there, dress up the entrance, so it's, bike access, have some arrows, follow it in, have a rack that you can park your bike, you can sit in the covered areas, keep an eye on it. Usually you're in groups of 2 or more, so one person stays there, keeps an eye on the bike, the others go get, refreshments and come back. So I think they're very good ideas. It's, I use that bike path a lot, and it probably does make sense to have a closer bike rack.
Okay.
All right, I'll close the public hearing. Go back to our discussion. Okay, any other comments, discussion? Someone like to make a motion?
Make a motion. I make a motion to approve the amendment to conditional use permit 14-01 with the condition of a rear bike rack near the bike path entry, and design review permit DRP 14-05 for use of the property as a boutique winery, including on-site grape processing and storage. The remodel of the existing structures, addition to the existing structure, and installation of new parking and landscaping located at 821 West Ojai Avenue.
Any discussion? Question?
I'll second that.
Okay. Give a roll call?
Merck,
Yes.
Jagielo?
Yes.
Isabella?
Yes.
Nolan?
Yes.
Nicklin?
Yes.
Wojciechowski?
Aye.
Thank you.
That's it. Thanks, guys. Thank you. It's a great project. We're looking forward to it.
We were at the point of where we're, have our informational items, to hear from our director's report and director's actions. Ms. Wold?
Thank you. You'll just note on the director's decisions, we have just 3, and that was a home occupation, peanuts for the Village of the Tales, and temporary banner, so we're kind of light on those. We have quite a number of director's exemptions we're working on right now, but as you know, they go through a different process right now where they're routed up to city council, and so they take a little longer, and they'll be coming forward for you. So for the next upcoming planning commission meeting, we have design review at 832 East Ojai Avenue, and you've probably driven by that little spa thing that was redone out there on the east end. And I think there's one more, I can't actually remember at this point if we have another one or not. I guess, is this the only one that we have? I think so. We've been, kind of short-staffed, and we had sort of, I'm just not trying to make excuses, but we had a computer meltdown last week. So my apologies to all of you that you got one item a little bit later than the others. And I hope that wasn't too disruptive, but it was really quite a chaotic week for us last week. So with that, then I guess, am I missing, did I do code enforcement in here, or is it, oh, I'm sorry, okay. And then the code enforcement, and as you will know, we continue to receive lots and lots of, is very active right now, doing proactive and receiving lots of complaints. And I'm sure if you listened to city council last night, you see that, sort of neighbor against neighbor at some points in time. So we're working on them, and they're going out. And we heard complaints about leaf blowers last night at city council and this and that. So, but he's definitely got a very large pile of letters and cases he's working on. So if you have any questions, I can answer them as far as I can with code enforcement. But just to let you know that he's hit the road running, I guess you'd say. And I'm open to any other questions you have about anything else as far as workload, et cetera.
I'm just glad that we have a code enforcement officer now. That's a big step for us and badly needed, so. Planning Commission subcommittee reports, and I know Kathleen has got a lot to talk about.
Well, I'll try to keep it brief. As I hope everyone knows, this week we are having our public workshop at the Women's Club, and this is something we've been working on for 5 years, and so it's really exciting that it's taking place. The city has hired a consulting firm, and they're putting on public workshops, and I just gonna announce it again because tomorrow is our last day. But members of the public are welcome to come between 2 and 7. You can make comments between 2 and 6. And then the last hour is going to be a presentation. And what we've done so far is the first day we kind of concentrated on bicycle access. Today was pedestrian. And then tomorrow's going to be on the neighborhoods. But feel free to come and comment on anything that has to do with the public right-of-way and streets during the public participation time. And then the follow-up will be they're gathering information for all the comments that people have made, and they'll be putting it together and creating a, I'm not sure if they're still calling it a master plan or an implementation. I think that's to be determined. But it's really exciting, and I encourage anyone, please come and participate. This is your chance to speak up, good, bad, or indifferent, or if you've got solutions. Every comment is welcome. And on a regular basis, the Complete Streets Subcommittee meets on the first Wednesday of the month. Everyone is welcome. We meet here at City Hall from 2:30 to 4:30, and you're welcome to join us. And then I did have a couple just comments that I wanted to make. Something I wanted to maybe make a request, and that would be, I know sometimes we don't have all of the information in our package. Let's say it's something to do with the municipal code or the general plan. And I love that Matt's over there scrolling on his iPad and getting it, or iPhone, but we don't have access to that information, and neither does the public. And I'm wondering if it's possible that staff would have, I'm not sure exactly technically, what the solution is, a device so that when a question comes up and we need to look at a code or you're looking at it, we have access and so does the public, and it could be shown on the screens. That would be really, I think, really helpful if it's not, too much to ask.
I believe that that's being looked into,
Oh, good.
but I'll double check on that.
Okay, good. And then, one other comment, and this had to do with, I know at our last meeting, we all commented on the Planning Academy, those of us who attended. And there was one thing I forgot to mention, and I wanted to bring it up again. I ended up sitting at a table, one of our roundtable discussions, with an attorney who had done a presentation there, and then some planning commissioners and others from other cities. And I didn't bring it up, but they did it, and the topic came up about noticing. And it was really interesting because we had just gone through the cell tower noticing issue. But what I discovered and I'd taken notes on was the attorney who sat next to me, he was from a community down, I think it was Riverside or Imperial County. They actually did 600-foot noticing for all their projects, which was wide. Other ones did up to 500 feet. But the discussion continued, and what I found was really valuable. Most of them had said they had recently expanded their noticing area to eliminate any issues that may come up. And this was kind of across the board on all projects. And, I lost my thought for a second. Sorry about that. But I just wanted to share that as far as, I know we've had the issue where we've had members of the public who have maybe felt they weren't noticed, or why didn't they get noticed. And so just as a consideration, I'm just sharing that material. And then the other one was about staff providing information and us having access to it. And that's what kind of prompted me to make the request that somehow technically we're able to access that material when you're looking at it. So thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. So just to reiterate, the Complete Streets final workshop is tomorrow from 2 to 7, open to the public. The summary of, I think, the 3-day event starts at 6 o'clock. So that's at the Women's Club, and that's located between Jersey Mike's and Bliss Yogurt. I think we're right in that neighborhood there, right on the avenue. So we want to encourage everybody to attend and like to have the opportunity to give input. It's a good thing. I think that brings us to our City Council liaison member, Betsy Clapp. Welcome.
Hi. Last night was interesting about the leaf blowers. They seem to be a very contentious subject. And I agree, it's really good to have a code enforcement officer. The fact that we're having so many people calling in clearly shows, I think, that it was something that was needed. So I'm really glad that that's finally happening. I went to the workshop this afternoon. It was really great. And when you really talk to somebody that knows about it, you realize really what a complicated thing it is. And this is a pretty challenging town, I think, to do something in because we have so many narrow streets and no sidewalks. And so it's really interesting to see the ideas they have to make it all work better. And I hope it's not just a master plan. I really want it to be an implementation plan. This has gone on long enough. We really, truly need to make it safe to bike and walk in this town. And I think we all know that neither are very safe right now. And let's see, what else is there to... the vacation rental focus group has met 3 times. And we are now interviewing a facilitator to do a citywide workshop, and that should be occurring very soon after we get the facilitator. We've pretty much narrowed it down to who we think would be the best suited for the community. And after that's settled, we will be announcing when the workshop will be. That's about it.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah. Any questions?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is appropriate to bring this up now, but the document that we received just prior to the meeting, statement on Planning Commission pre-meetings.
Yes, Bill Wyrick called me. He wrote that. He was very concerned about the policy. It's something that the city did when I was first on city council. We did council pre-meetings as well. And that practice has slowly fallen away. Mr. Wyrick feels that he would like to see it also stop within the Planning Commission, not from any distrust, but from, I believe, and he states it in there, for transparency, I think. He feels that he would like to see the policy stop, and it will be brought back before council for discussion, I think, at our next meeting.
I'd like to respond to Mr. Wyrick in writing, but perhaps you could point out to him that if he was running a business and he had employees working 20 hours a month and not getting paid, he'd be in a lot of trouble. And I think the city council is in a similar situation with planning commissioners.
Yeah, I find it very important, that meeting. Here we get a packet of information. You see the packet here?
Oh, I know.
It's massive.
Huge.
To go through this and to not be able to ask anybody a question is ridiculous, okay? And to sit down for a few minutes and get breakfast, oh my God, what a sin. You know, for all the work that we do, and to get just insight into the project itself. Kathleen is very good at not making any kind of recommendation one way or another. It's literally our opportunity to just get into the details of some of the stuff which she's intimately involved with. When we get these packets, there's no way we're going to absorb this information in the time frame that we have. So this opportunity just to have her point out areas that are things that we should be thinking about, as far as not what our opinion is, but what we should be focused on, like where the you'd say the issues would be with a particular project. They are outlined in her report, but again, to find those and to identify everything that in these reports prior to the meeting is very challenging to do in the short amount of time that we have. And I find those meetings just hugely valuable. So and they've been going on for what, 15, 20 years?
I don't know, a long time.
John knows, he's been doing it.
It's more than 20 years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're committing a crime against the state.
Well, I think it's really important that the commissioners come to that meeting and voice your sentiments.
Is that the next meeting, Betsy? You think?
I think so.
We'll watch our
I
agenda.
think, is it Kathleen, do you ever know? Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also like to say, we all run businesses and things, and when you set to a certain time of that day, and, Kathleen doesn't have the time for us to come in individually over the day and make time for us, where, she's assigned herself to 2 hours of a day and, and answers our questions. And I've found this for myself very valuable, extremely valuable, that time. It clears up things, the questions you have when you're reading your packages. And you know, to call her or to do whatever. It's, you know.
Yeah, sometimes we get pretty thick packets, and there's a lot of stuff, a lot of legal stuff you have to understand, and to pick it all out of there can be really difficult. It really can. I really strongly urge you to come and talk at that meeting. I really do.
I'm happy to pay for my
And
breakfast.
He did call, he did call because he suspected that I would get this question, and that's why he said to me that he wanted me to speak for him, but quite frankly, I'd rather not speak for him.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's better to
attending another meeting puts like another onus on us, you know, as volunteer community members. I just personally feel it's just I was just kind of shocked by the tone of the letter.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I have to work, you know, 50 hours a week. I have a family. It's like, I'm just disappointed in the tone and the spirit of the letter.
You know, it's another meeting, but it's a very important meeting to our meeting tonight. That's, you know, it might be another meeting and we all have busy schedules, but it's a very important meeting.
I was going to say, I too have valued the meeting. I know when I first came on the commission, you know, I said, you know, what's the meeting obligation? Well, you know, it's twice a month on Wednesday night, and in addition, we have a pre-meeting, you know, time for you to come and, you know, go through your packet and come with questions. And I have found it to be very valuable. We do meet in a public space. Yes, we are having a meal, but
On taxpayer dollars.
on taxpayer dollars. But I don't, you know, based once again on the tone of this letter, I don't feel like I'm doing something covert. I never have. I mean, people know that I go to the meeting. People see us at the restaurant.
And we're shouting pretty much in the
Yeah,
restaurant.
yeah. So,
I mean, in a good way, in a good way.
you know, if somewhere, you know, in the past, you know, this was made a procedure and there was something wrong with it, you know, council should come back or staff and let us know. But the tone of this sounds like it's something that we generated, and we're demanding this, you know, free meal. And yeah, the tone was a little off. So once again, if there's some reason, you know, that staff discovers or council, then just come back and let us know. But I think the approach could be a little bit different.
I'd just like to add that, you know, we are all well-trained in the ins and outs of the Brown Act. We've all attended ethics training. In addition, more hours that we have contributed to make sure we're well-educated. And I think the implication is that if three of us gather, we can't be trusted to mind our manners and mind the rules. I mean, it is an efficient way for us to get something done. And if we're really going to talk about taxpayers' dollars, it's going to cost the taxpayers far more for us to individually sit down with Ms. Wold and ask her the questions that we need to ask her. And it's just, you know, there's a point where we have to balance efficiency when there's no risk, really. We have to balance another drain on community resources versus no risk or teeny tiny little bit of risk. And we are meeting with the development director. We ask questions. We ask her to perhaps come back with, you know, be prepared for this particular type of question. It's all really clarification. We do not form opinions. We don't discuss whether we like a project or we don't like a project. We merely are there to be better prepared. And then to be, you know, somehow called out is really inappropriate.
Well, I was also called out and told that I was meeting with you as well for lunches and that I was colluding with you in a letter that was sent to the public. And so I understand your sense of offense because I've never had lunch with anyone and I don't collude.
There's just so many opinions that seem formed with a piece of the information. Nobody sits back and says, let's find out the whole story. Let's ask, really, let's get the whole picture, not just one side of it. And you do it at the detriment of people who are volunteering. I mean, it's just crazy.
Well, I think you've all made really excellent points, and I really hope you come to the meeting. I really do. I think it's really important that you do, because you do devote a lot of time, and you have really valid points. And I just encourage you to come to the meeting.
Can I make a comment about that as a public person?
We'd have to open up the public comment.
Public comment period for the meeting passed at the beginning of the meeting. It's within your discretion to allow additional public comment.
I think we'll hold off on that.
Okay.
Just because of the timing of the situation. Could we be willing to hear you at the next planning commission meeting during the public commentary?
And I would suggest, and I would add that the council meeting, which will be before the next public planning commission meeting, will, I suspect, be discussing this issue, and that would be a good opportunity to comment, as the council will be making the decision on this issue, not the planning commission.
This is true.
So, Councilmember Clapp, where does that leave us?
That leaves us with it being brought forward as a discussion item, which I agreed that I felt it should be done. It should be discussed, because I think when there's any council member that has a concern about something, that it should be discussed, and it's going to be discussed at the next meeting, and I really encourage you to come and talk. Okay?
Any questions further questions? Clapp? No? Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Betsy.
Okay.
Please. Mike? Thank you, Betsy. With that under wraps, I hereby close this meeting.